Thanks so much, everybody, for coming over and sharing this wonderful experience of poetry with us this Monday morning. Today we have with us Harish Bhat and Malashri Lal, two stalwarts in their respective fields, connected by their common love and passion for poetry. I'll introduce Harish Bhat first. Harish Bhat has had many roles in the Tata Group over the past 36 years, including as brand custodian of the Tata brand, managing director of Tata Global Beverages, and chief operating officer of the watches and jewelry businesses of the Titan Company Limited. He's currently a director on the boards of some Tata companies and advisor at Tata Sons. An avid marketer, he has helped create many successful Tata brands such as Tanishq, Tata Tea, and Fast Track. Sir, I invite you to come on stage, please. Dr. Malashri Lal is a renowned academic, critic, and writer. She's recently retired from her academic and administrative positions at the University of Delhi's English department. She's a member for the English Advisory Board of the Sahitya Akademi and Bharatiya Gyanpith's Advisory Committee. Her specialization is in literature, women, and gender studies. Her books include In Search of Sita, Revisiting Mythology, Tagore and the Feminine, A Journey Through Translations, and Finding Radha, The Quest for Love. Ma'am, I invite you on stage, please. Okay, I'll just give a short introduction to each of their work before I invite them to read. So, Harish Bhat has published books to his credit, including 3 national bestsellers. Restless Lives, his latest book, is also his debut volume of poetry. The poems in this book invite us to pause and unravel the profound realities of our everyday lives. They provide us an oasis of quiet contemplation in which we can sit by ourselves and do so. At times pleasing, at others disturbing, the lines within these pages promise to give pause, inspire, and stir emotion. I invite Mr. Bhat to read from Restless Lives.
Good morning to all of you, and thank you for taking time on a Monday morning to be here. It is my great pleasure to read a few poems from my book, Restless Lives, which is also my debut book of poetry. So let me begin. This poem is titled, I Know You Will Sing Tonight. I know you will sing tonight at a place so far away, out of reach and out of sight, but I will hear you say what you have said a million times, holding back your tears, simple words and pleasing rhymes that suppress your own fears. Now you're woken up and flown to such rapturous applause. Do you still recall the stone that we would silently toss into the waters where your song would burst so fresh and free, inviting us to dance along and be what we would be? I know you will sing tonight songs of the long-lost dove, and in our corner, dimming light, I will listen, my love. So that was the first poem I wanted to sing out. I know you will sing tonight. Let me go to the next poem, which sets a different mood. And this book is all about different moods, as you will see if you read it. This one is, The World Has Finally Stopped. It's not about songs, it's about the world which has stopped. I heard the world has finally stopped, and I wonder why. Is it something we did? Or some secret we hid? Or that gooey, sticky stream of blood that ruined our backyard last week? Such a rapidly spinning thing. No forewarning, not a ring. And now it stopped. And now it stopped, like my darling little watch. Like my blingy thingy watch with diamonds in it. Now hard and frozen, no light to shine. Oh, that's because the lights have also gone, searching for the missing dawn, and I wonder why. Is it something we never spoke about? Some lingering, packed up, shameful doubt like those shredded limbs that we suddenly saw on our beautiful lawns last week. There are questions for you, questions for me, questions that will never let us be, people in a world that's finally stopped, where we lived too long for free. And I think we have lived too long for free in this world, which is why it's stopping time and again. That's my second poem for you. My third poem for you sets a very different mood again. It's called The Song of a Disturbed Night. I don't want to watch the sea tonight. Its waves are not an easy sight. So should I sleep or should I roam the street outside my broken home? Should I dance or should I sing until my mind takes gentle wing? Tell me, tell me, tell me, am I right to seek a little streak of light? Maybe it is the whispering time for a haunting piece of nursery rhyme that does not leave my throbbing head, fallen, broken, cracked and dead. I see him jumping up and down, an orange yolk in a dressing gown, and then I ask, what should I do when you have lost your sheen of blue? Talk to me, you fallen star. Talk to me, you see so far. Talk for everything and now, years and years of starlit love. All I need are silent tones, a bit of warmth within my bones. I want to rise, I long to fly. I want to rise, I long to fly. One more time before I die. That's the song of a disturbed night. I will now move to a very different mood. This poem is titled, When Shall We Dance Again? So much time since the music stopped, tracks too hot to resist. So many days since the curtains dropped, oh, so many nights since we kissed. All this emptiness, where will it go? Will it finally drown in the sea? Without the light and without the flow, where will our passions be? So much darkness since that moonlit night, how long will these dark clouds stay? It doesn't feel good, it's just not right what we have done to ourselves today. Perhaps with hope and prayers that rise, these clouds will vanish with rain, clear sweet water falling on our eyes, and then we'll dance again. That's the song. That's the poem called When Shall We Dance Again? And a final poem before I go back to my seat. This is my mother's favorite poem from the book, and so I thought I would read it out, Anisha. This is a tribute to a person who is an icon of all generations in India today, President APJ Abdul Kalam. And this says, thank you for giving us wings of fire. You gave our minds great wings of fire. You gave our hearts fine thoughts of gold. You took our sights higher and higher to a great strong nation beyond the fold. You urged us, come, walk, inspire, dream your dreams big and bold. These missiles of the mind that you made for us, where were they forged and what did they bear? How did you charm this entire land with your twinkling smile and your flowing hair? You taught us to grow, and yet like a child, how did you lead us to this fantastic fair? Missile man, hear us once more, for we rise to the wondrous sounds we heard. We rise to thank you for paving this path, for reaching our youth with passion stirred. We, the nation, we wish you well as you fly away on your beautiful bird. That's a tribute to President Abdul Kalam. Thank you very much, Anisha.
Thank you, sir, for the quiet contemplation of your words and for your profound poems. I will introduce Malashri Lal's poems next. Bashabi Fraser, Professor of English and Creative Writing at the Edinburgh Napier University, who has written the foreword to Malashri's book of poems, Mandalas of Time, says, Malashri Lal is a secret poet who has emerged slowly out of her modest self to share her verse with the world, publishing some of her work in international anthologies and journals, which have already made a mark in the poetry world. In this collection of 75 poems, we are introduced to the many themes and subjects that fascinate, move, and inspire Malashri. Mandalas of Time, the title Mandalas of Time, seems an apt analogy for capturing the eclectic moments these poems commemorate. I invite Dr. Malashri Lal to read from her work Mandalas of Time.
Thank you, Anisha. Thank you, Harish. And thank you, this wonderful audience, to brave out a Monday morning to listen to some poetry. So how did Mandalas of Time, this book, happen, which was launched in September of 2023? I've written a very large number of books as an academic at Delhi University who taught there for almost 45 years, but I never had the courage to write, or rather publish, my poetry. And many people have asked me, why did you take so long to come out with this book? And my simple answer is, I wasn't ready for it. So one thing I've learned in publishing Mandalas is that it's never too late to make a fresh beginning. And then during COVID, when the terror of mortality was so close to all of us at all times, I started foraging around for poems I had written, some that I had published, some that were on back of envelopes and white napkins in the house and stuffed into drawers and between pages. And then I started putting them together into a pile and saying, this pile is looking pretty big. And then I showed it to a few friends and they said, it's not only big, but I think it's also worth publishing. So I said, okay, I'll go ahead. Now let's look for a publisher. Found a wonderful publisher, Havakal, who jumped at the manuscript and said, I'm going to do it in 2 months, whereas I had said 1 year. Give me a year, I need that kind of time to revise. Because remember, I'm a teacher. Every time an essay comes to me, I revise it 5 times over. So, so that's how the book happened. The second thing that I want to mention before going into the reading is that I'm a Jaipur person. I teach at Delhi University, I live in Delhi, but a lot of my heart resides in this city where I grew up and had all my education. So what I'm going to present to you today, to begin with, are some of the Jaipur poems, because I think there is a history and an emotion about Jaipur that reside in these poems. And I'm going to start by picking up a phrase from Harish, where he talks about restless days. And for me, poetry is a measure of healing. And it is to get away from those restless days of Delhi that I run away to Jaipur. And when I'm here, the poetry comes. And a lot of it is about the environment and the people and the history of this city. So the first poem that I'm going to read is called Shila Devi of Amber. Now, I'm sure everybody who lives in the city or who visits the city has been to the temple, but how many of us really know the story of her journey? Because she was initially a black stone in Joshur in Bengal. Now Joshur is not in India anymore, but that time it was in Bengal. And Raja Man Singh saw this stone in a dream, and she turned into a goddess and said, if you take me with you, I will bring you victory and glory. And that is how Shila Devi came to Rajasthan and this temple was built. Now, there is a parallel in my life to some extent because I am of Bengali origin in terms of a bloodline. But I'm not Bengali in my cultural orientation. I read, speak, write Bangla, and my unmarried name was Mukherjee, and nobody ever asked me then, are you Bengali? Of course I was Bengali if I were a Mukherjee. But when I married this gentleman sitting in the front row and I turned Lal, nobody actually now recognizes that I am a Bengali. So this issue of transition and migration, Harish, is also a part of the restlessness of modern life. So many people here must have migrated from one part of the country to another and are dealing with that notion of a split identity. So as I was returning to Jaipur again and again, Shila Devi became a kind of an icon for this fragmented but happy migrant identity. So here is the poem. Shila Devi of Amber. Gilded silver doors encase me now with a retinue of priests who determine my hours of Shayan, Darshan, and Bhog. I think of my freedoms in Joshur. In a marshy pit, I lay hidden when Man Singh found me as a black miracle stone. I traveled to golden Rajasthan. Honor, glory, wealth was mine. But what happened to my companions in the marsh, the dolorous fish, the raucous frogs, the earth-hugging worms? Did they find adoration too? That's it. Thank you. There's another poem which is about Hawa Mahal. Now, all of you would have seen this building of lattice work, and you may or may not know that the lattice is designed in such a way that the women sitting behind those windows can look into the street below. But nobody from the street can look into the windows. So this is a way of encapsulating women in a certain kind of a cultural space, keeping them limited, domesticated, confined, controlled, and yet giving them the illusion of freedom. Because what stands between them and that road below where processions, beautiful processions with caparisoned elephants and other animals and beautifully dressed dancers, they go by that road several times in the year because this is a city of festivities. And the women sit behind and they watch this and they imagine that they are participating in this ceremonial endeavor. But are they, is my question. By the way, many of you will notice that my poems end in question marks because I don't have the answers. I only raise the questions. Hawa Mahal. Who sits behind those tiered windows, arched like Ram's bow, waiting to tremble into action for a hunt yet to start? A princess in royal blue, the color of Diwali, peers from the shadows, looking eagerly at the carriages below, thirsting for a paramour not yet known. Cloistered girlhood, guarded puberty, controlled womanhood, how did she learn to dream of love and desire? Was it the legends of Krishna intricately drawn on the walls? Was it her prayers which held hidden meaning in pursuing the call of the flute? Thank you. And following Harish's track, I'm going to read a poem about a person I have admired greatly, and she belongs to Jaipur, and that is Maharani Gayatri Devi. I went to a school that she had established in Jaipur in 1943, and every day of my life, I thank her in my mind for the education that I received there. Because this was a school set up for girls who came from the kind of cloistered environment that Hawa Mahal captures. But she opened the world through the curriculum that contained elements from Western education and also Indian traditions. So the principal was an English lady. Our English teachers came from Cambridge, but we also had compulsory Hindi, compulsory Sanskrit, compulsory Indian art and Indian dance and music, along with piano lessons. Now, back in the times that I was there, which was not 1940s, somewhat later, the school had been well established. And somehow the integrated curriculum worked wonders, not only for the Rajput girls for whom it had been started, but all of us who were people residing in the city. My father was in the government of Rajasthan, and we had the benefits of this wonderful education. But what did the world think of Gayatri Devi? Everybody will read that tag, the most beautiful woman in the world. Okay, that's her external nature. But does one not talk about chiffons and beauty and pearl necklaces? I think it was very important to go behind that persona and to see this pioneer in education. So I wrote this poem about Maharani Gayatri Devi. We saw the gentle side to the glamour of chiffons and pearls, celebrities in tow, the encouraging words to schoolgirls, breaking the molds of rigid traditions of confinement. Education will open doors to the pink firmament of success. Remember, it's women who lead the social change, whether in parliament, palace, or jhopdi. On the streets of Jaipur, strewn with gulab petals, Gayatri Devi was equally easy with the thorns. Called the most beautiful woman in the world, she had a luminous soul too, urging girls to be gentle yet firm and build the nation with their Shram Shakti. Thank you very much. More poems later in the session.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Malashri ma'am, for the rootedness of your poems. I'm sure a lot of people here, especially women, will be able to relate a lot to your poems. So I thought it would be nice to break the readings with a short conversation and understand, what is the sort of the thought process that goes behind the making of these poems, right? We all heard them just now and we love them, but what is it that is going on in their minds to make this poem? So, Mr. Bhat, you have said that I write poetry to create moments of catharsis, counterpoints to the restlessness of life. When brought together, they forge a harmony that is intensely alive. And, ma'am, you have said that you've spoken about your disparate inheritances, which take shape in the cities that you come from, right? From Jaipur, you have a connection with Calcutta and Shantiniketan and Delhi. And to quell the confusion about your identity, you said I wrote reams of diary pages, and poetry has been your attempt to bridge those disparate inheritances. So sort of taking on from there, I wanted to ask both of you, why poetry? You both are very successful in your respective fields of academia and the corporate world, marketing. What is it that still drives you to write poetry, despite your very busy lives and careers? Yeah.
So thank you, Anisha. I've written many books before this, but those have been books on corporate history, on marketing. But Anisha, it's some things, when I wrote Restless Lives, one of the reasons is that some things can just not be expressed in prose. Some thoughts are so fleeting and some ideas are so nebulous that you need poetry to capture them. And for me, I've led multiple lives. Many of them are public, as a Tata officer, as a writer, and so forth. Some of them are private lives. Some are bright. Some are dark. Some that I'm proud of. Some that I'm ashamed of. So as those thoughts keep swirling through my mind, I think poetry kind of helps me to pin down those thoughts and to catch those thoughts before they fly away. But poetry is also a good way of calming down. Poetry is also a good way of bringing those thoughts down and letting them settle in your mind in a very nice way. So those are the two reasons that I actually write poetry. And poetry helps me catch those thoughts before they fly away. Once they fly away, it's impossible to get them back. But why would anyone read this book? I think it's basically because we lead very restless lives. All of us. You do, Malashri ma'am does, I do. And I think poetry just helps us calm down and reflect on all those thoughts flowing through our mind. It just helps us settle down. And that's one of the reasons that I want to recommend that people read a book like this, or read any book of poetry that you wish to. Read Malashri ma'am's book, because it just helps settle down your thoughts. It helps you reflect in a world which is so hectic.
Wonderful question, Anisha. And I'm going to respond by actually claiming that everybody in this audience is a poet. I believe everyone has the capacity, capability, and have probably expressed it on paper, poetry at some point in their lives. So the reason for writing poetry is manifold. For me, and I have written about it in the book, poetry is also a means for healing. And I call the book Mandalas because it shows to me the possibility of outbursts of energy, the energy that happens when you're overstimulated by the restless lives around us. And it helps you to calm down And much of the poetry that I write, they're short poems, and they came like those chakras or mandalas or circles of energy bursts. Call it whatever you will, because I don't see mandalas as necessarily a religious symbology, but to denote these outbursts which have helped to calm down or to express anger or to express despair or compassion. Any of these intense emotions, for me, find expression in poetry.
Thank you. Yes, I think that the process of writing itself, it forces you to kind of be on the page, right? And to think about that word, and that kind of calms you down. So sort of taking on from this question, and you have, both of you have spoken about this a little bit already, but so what are the sort of themes or ideas that obsess you, that drive you to write your poems? If you can talk a little bit about that as well, please.
So I think one theme which is constantly on my mind is when you're restless, your mind also is often disturbed. And when your mind is disturbed, there are all kinds of thoughts which keep coalescing in your mind, floating through your mind. How do I make sense of those thoughts? How do I distill down those thoughts to what actually is meaningful to me? That's one theme that goes on in my mind. The other is, I'm a marketer. I keep wandering around the country. I was in Kolkata last week. I'm in Jaipur now. I'll probably be traveling to your town, Madam, Delhi, sometime soon. When I go to places, or I go to Kashi and Varanasi, whenever I go to a place, I observe. And those are observations of everyday life. They're observations about a dog in the street. They're observations about the food that I eat. They're observations about people. And somehow those observations about people also lead me to think. And those thoughts also find their way subconsciously, I think, into the poetry that I write. The third, if you ask me really, is my cup of tea or coffee. When I have my cup of tea or coffee early in the morning, sometimes I don't know why, but I think hidden in every cup of tea is a lot of poetry. We just need to extract it out of the cup. Thank you.
Thank you.
The consistent theme in my poetry is gender equality. And anyone who knows my work over the last 4 decades would know that I'm a passionate defender of women's rights. And yet, I don't believe in the kind of aggressive feminism that is often visible. My own version of it, and that I've tried to pass on to my students over the years, is a much more moderate form of feminism. And this started the process when I was given curriculums to teach at Delhi University, which were inheritances from the colonial syllabus. And when we taught women's writing, we did Mary Wollstonecraft and Virginia Woolf, and we forgot all about the many women in our country and in our history who had struggled for women's rights. One can easily talk of Sarojini Naidu, Pandita Ramabai, there are many. But where were they? They were not in the syllabus. So I started creating my own syllabus. That was the first protest. And I've actually been writing a lot about how, to me, Sarojini Naidu is the foremother of Indian feminism. You might ask me why. Well, she was a poet. She was a politician, a mother, who was never trying to hide her domestic responsibilities. There are copious letters that she wrote regularly to her daughters. And when she went into politics, she was advised by some very well-known men leaders to give up poetry and take to politics full-time, because they said, you can't manage to. And she said, watch, I can do it all. So that is my idea of feminism. Women can multitask. That doesn't mean that they become overburdened. It's their choice, how much they want to multitask. And therefore, my poems are about women's equality. And if I may just take a minute more, I opened my collection with a poem on Ardhanarishwar, because that, to me, is the image of equality. The male and the female have their separate attributes, but they are fused, inseparable, and interdependent.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I feel empowered just listening to that. Okay, I think we have time for another round of readings. So, sir, if you can go first.
So I'll do another round of readings from my book, Restless Lives. I don't forget my profession as a marketer, so I will urge all of you, if possible, please do pick up the book and read it. I'm sure books will be available on sale here after the event. Let me start with this poem. The title of this poem is My Stalker Takes a Million Forms. Stalker as in the person who stalks you. Murmuring streets stalk me tonight, silent swirling vapors and distant unseen light. Forlorn are the swarms, desolate is the sight. Greetings at this gate, my friend, there never was a key. Kindly leave your golem out and at least pretend to be free. We have a welcome drink for you and you can choose to be. Wrought iron gates are shut as they speak. Mock me like a paradise that's turned arid bleak. I will wait and turn away. I will search yet never seek. The emperor sends you greetings and the stone so lustrous bright. We'll do a little painless check to make sure you're all right. Then we have a house of gold where you can rest from flight. Rooms of shining silver gold, prisons of my days, mirroring those dreary marshes of indifferent haze. My stalker takes a million forms, but will never change his ways. So that's the poem. And many of the poems in this book we thought should also be evoked by illustrations. So a young illustrator, Sanchita, has actually illustrated this book, and you'll find illustrations like this behind many of the poems within the book itself. The second poem that I want to read out to you is a more fun poem. Okay, so some of the poems in this book are a little more fun. Not all of them are very serious. This one was actually inspired by Lewis Carroll. And this poem says of bankers and billionaires. So please hear this poem very carefully. Said the banker to his billionaire friend, let's talk of many things. Fat bonuses and Ponzi schemes and bailouts fit for kings. Why bother with dud PE funds until the fat lady sings? Why bother with silly interest rates when they're bound to drop much more? With all this time on our clean little hands, let's shop for a Greek marble floor. Or a Picasso that's up for sale tonight, this old landscape's such a bore. Obama's capped our pay, I'm told, but our bank's dining cards are here. So let's fly our jet to LA tonight and do a meal so sheer. Caviar and truffles are just the thing to accompany Belgian beer. Did you hear that global growth is down and may go all the way to nil? And the pound is driving like a stone against stubborn British will? Our car makers on the verge of a fall, but wait, would you like a refill? Perhaps you'd care for some oysters now. This place serves them salty cold. I meant to tell you all this time. I keep forgetting I'm getting so old. Do you recall that large stock portfolio you advised us to hold? Worth a cool 600 million, largest we have held, my love. Our chief traders run it to the ground. It's worthless as of now. Would you like another drink perhaps before I take my bow? So that's of bankers and billionaires. That's a very different sort of poem. This one, I think Anisha said it's one of her favorites, so I'm reading it out. Musings on Love and Life. Who grieve tonight, they grieve for love. Who laugh, they laugh for life. Who dream tonight, they think of how they walk through peace and strife. Who talk tonight, they talk of love. Who sing, they sing to dance. No seeds, no fields to till and plow. Stark the barrenness stands. Who fly tonight, they fly for love. Who soar for freedom's store. The eagle always kills the dove, yet they always look for more. So that's Musings on Love and Life. I have time for one more poem, Anisha. So let me read out the first poem in this book. It's a poem born out of a scene that I saw when I was visiting Kashi, where there are ghats where dead bodies are, cremated. It's a sight which leaves all kinds of feelings in my mind. And then I saw a couple of dogs wandering there also. And this is from the perspective of a dog. So it's called A Dog at the Burning Ghats. Long and lazy hours have come upon us in these winding, untidy lanes where cows and pigs live uneasily on caked and crumbling earth. Down the road, the fires devour and mongrel dogs wander around growling, filthy at seeking the joy of bitches in the shadows of the valley of death. That's not my kind of death, my friend. It happens all the time around here. I just warm myself by these smoking fires and forage in these black and ashen mounds. I have learned not to bark at dead men who worship me, the consort of death. That's it, though. It's not my world, though it is, in a different sort of way. Would it be any different on a warm hearth, living in the midst of walking corpses, peering into the secret messiness of absurd lives while in a gilded cage? The only true grief is here. The only true journey begins from here. The only true fires are lit at this spot. So, of course, it is the only truth that I know. Thank you very much.
This is to strengthen what I said about my interest not only in gender issues, but within that, if you were to refine it further, my focus on the marginal. There's been a lot of talk about the Ramayana and the Ram Katha lately, and I have a poem on Manthara Dasi. You'll all remember that she's a much reviled character. Let's think, why is she reviled? She is hunchback. That's the identity that she has. And that is, again, an external identity, but does she not have a heart? And if she's born a hunchback, is she to blame? Is she to be hated by generations and traditions and centuries? So I wrote this poem questioning that assumption and tried to show another side of Manthara. Manthara Dasi. Could I close my ears to those barbs? Sorry. Kubra, hunchback, shame, oh shame, crooked, so I was born. The ugliest of women where beauty is praised, mocked, derided as Kujo, as though I bore a crooked soul. Yet I loved like a mother. I loved Kekai and desired the best for her. Kingdom, fame, wealth, and love, a perennial cornucopia. She found it too, marrying Dashrath. I wanted more for her, the supreme power of Queen Mother. The hunchback's wisdom, observation, acuteness didn't fail me, and Kekai, obedient daughter, asked for her boons, kingdom for Bharat and Ram's exile. Oh, horror. The sublime dream turned into infernal curse. People pelted stones on my back, shouting, Kubra, Kujo. My daughter, she shut her door against me. I slunk into a hovel to save my life. I slept among worms and putrid soil, bereft of care or sympathy, hated, reviled for my ugliness. What wrong did I do in protecting my child? Doesn't every mother dream of a princess, a queen? Thank you. So there is another set of poems in this collection which talk about the migrant workers during COVID. As the newspaper reports kept coming out, labeling everyone flatly as migrant workers, my lens turned toward the gender question. Does the female migrant worker have a different story? And I did some newspaper reports on it, and others were also picking up events and sad things that were happening along the journey as the migrants walked home, so to speak. And I wrote a couple of poems, but I have two in this book, on precise newspaper stories. So here is one which is called The Woman Migrant Worker and is based on a news story which I'm just reading out. A migrant worker, Shakuntala, risked walking a distance of 1,000 kilometers from Nashik to Satna in the 9th month of her pregnancy. So here is the poem. Jobless and with families to feed, the migrant workers trudged towards a mirage called home. Did a woman choose when her man decided to walk? From Nashik to Satna was 1,000 kilometers. Shakuntala's journey, her womb ripened by 9 months, was not anyone's concern. Birth is destined by the stars, they said. The mother's shrieks of pain by the roadside took none by surprise. Touching Mother Earth and believing in her God, Shakuntala took an interval in the long walk home. A newborn joined the walk a few hours later. The mother's crumpled womb was not anyone's concern. Thank you. I have a couple of poems on nature, and Ranjit Hoskote, who did the afterword for the book, mentioned on the metaphoric use of nature that I had pushed into the poems. So I'm going to read one poem which is called Bougainvillea. It's a flower that we see everywhere, but question again, is it a flower or is it a thorn or is it leaves? We all know who are a little bit interested in gardening that it's something of all. So here is a poem where I look at the bougainvillea as in foreign import, which it was, and a symbol of colonial power over India. It sort of comes there, takes charge, pushes all the native things away, and spreads all over the place. So here is a poem called Bougainvillea. The bougainvillea cascades in parks, shops, homes, metro, fences, clawing, creeping, clinging to surfaces, crushing them under a weight of thorns. Disguised as flowers, the bougainvillea is a migrant tree, blossom, and thorn that took root in our land and spread its deception of beauty. The barb is hidden. The leaves play with color. Branches spread wantonly. Our land is host to this migrant and its imperious authority. The gentle chameli vine is shattered. The harsingar is pushed to the corner. I gape at the invincible bougainvillea, a traveler who landed on our shores and conquered it with careless abundance. We have time? Okay, if we have time, I'm going to read a poem about Radha. This is also story-based, and I guess it's my interest in storytelling that gets me to write some of these poems. We know that after Krishna left Vrindavan, he never came back. The gopis kept asking as to when is he going to come back, when is he going to come back? And Krishna sends a messenger whose name is Uddhav. And there is this Bhavar Geet, because the gopis tell him, stop being like a bumblebee, going around the same thing again and again, and saying, oh, he's not coming back, we don't believe you. Radha never asks this question, because she has divine knowledge. He will not come back, that phase of his life is over. So this is a poem which is, when news reaches Radha that Krishna is grievously ill, and the only thing that can bring cure to him is the charnamrit of somebody who has unconditional love. Radha's dilemma. The palace messenger said, Krishna is grievously ill. Only feet washed water from a beloved would heal him. Is it true that Rani Rukmini and all the 1,600 wives refused, saying it's a grievous sin to feed charnamrit to a husband? Curse would fall upon a woman for insulting her patidev. Radha mused, God needs a cure. The world turns by his command. I am neither his wife nor a woman of social power. My love for Murli Manohar is unconditional. If my feet-washed water will heal him, this is my service to my eternal beloved. Here, messenger, take this small offering of water humbly sent. It touched the skin of one on whom Krishna bestowed endless touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So I think we are running out of time. So I just wanted to thank you all for coming here and spending your Monday morning with us and with poetry. Both the poets will be sitting at the the signing area there. So if you'd like to get your book signed. Okay, we have time for one question. Yes.
I noticed poetry goes unquestioned generally. Malashri, in today's world of wars and violence and brutality and chaos and pandemics and conflict, is poetry still relevant, and can it rescue this world of disorder and chaos and disharmony?
Poetry is the only rescue.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Absolutely yes, because I think poetry can provoke very powerful thoughts in our minds, and those thoughts can potentially lead to action. So I agree completely with Malashri. Poetry is the only rescue in these times. Very well put.
Thank you. I think we are running short of time, so no more questions, unfortunately. But please get your book signed by both our poets. They'll be sitting there, behind that. Thank you so much.